going to shed a little bit more light on intelligence collections. When you work for the CIA, you're involved in collecting information from your agents, and in some cases you'll collect information in the community that you live in overseas or in a place like Washington. You may be assisting in security for a foreign mission or consulate in the United States. The primary agency that's responsible for that is the Secret Service. So you'll be working with the Secret Service doing intelligence collections to support their security efforts. The part of that role is what they call the Security Protective Service. Those are people actually trained in protecting people, and often the Security Protective Service is protecting defectors and helping them get back to the United States or a friendly country where we can debrief them and resettle them to give them what they want in exchange for what they give us. Also, the Security Protective Service would sometimes work in Washington with the CIA, with the Secret Service and the FBI protecting foreign missions. So Marines who've worked in a Marine security guard role are perfect for that at CIA. You didn't need a 150 IQ to do that. You needed some experience. They prefer people with degrees and the right clearance, a protective clearance. There's top secret and then there's top secret protective. And it's a lot different when you're protecting a foreign ambassador, diplomat, or staffer at some foreign embassy than protecting our own generals, right? You have to have some kind of, or protecting our own embassy even, you have to have a willingness to do things to protect those people that involve endangering yourself in some circumstances, and, creating the confidence that we will protect the embassies on our soil from hostile, agents, aggressors, whatever you call. There's been some incidences in Washington, like I believe somebody was targeting the Saudi ambassador or some Saudi diplomat or something. It may have been an Iranian or something. There was some in the news a few years back in Washington, D.C. There was an incident. And, we have the spies in Russia who killed somebody with polonium in a sushi bar, and you have to consider what kind of risk you're willing to take for somebody from another country so that we can have diplomatic relations with that country. It can be a good stepping stone to an overseas assignment in that country as well, because those kind of people trust you and want to work with you, and they don't mind sharing information with you sometimes. You'd be surprised that not all the information we collect in foreign intelligence collections is from blackmail, extortion, and bribing people with money and sin, like sex, drugs, and rock concert tickets and American cigarettes and whiskey or something. Some of it is just relationship building, and it starts often in Washington, where you can meet some of these people and gain their confidence by tipping them off when there's a problem. They have their own security experts, but we have a lot of intelligence that supports their efforts. They like go downtown, eat an American restaurant, or in one of their ethnic restaurants, depending on who they are and what kind of background they have. And some of them enjoy a little party, a little fun in Washington. It's a good post. Everyone likes to be a spy in Washington. So you kind of have to support that. You have to understand that your role is not to spy on the diplomat, but to protect the diplomat. And usually a guy who's been a Marine security guard who can make that kind of intellectual leap doesn't have a problem with that. But some people are, more inclined to want to spy on people than to assist people who are not necessarily our biggest allies, like the Russians or the Chinese. Just too much for some people, and the counterintelligence security and selection process for that is pretty tough. It's it's a challenge to try to identify people who have those qualifications. They have to have the protection, training, and credentialing that comes from something like MSG or the Defense Security Services, where they help protect officers and generals, maybe staffers at a high post or a division or something like that, or on a ship, or people who protect the JCS or something like that. So those are the best candidates at CIA, the ones who have protection training, and then the ones that can kind of break from the mold and protect somebody else, not just our own people. This kind of, some people are too they can't do that kind of work because they just don't like the foreigners so much, and that's fine. There are a lot of roles they're better suited for. They don't want to work with foreigners. They don't want to eat their food. They don't want to speak their language. They don't want to learn that. That's fine. They don't need to do that. So there are a lot of other jobs for those kind of people in protection. There's billionaires down here in Florida that need protection. There's nuclear power plants. There's all kinds of good jobs for people with that kind of clearance. But you need a protective clearance, and that's a little different than an intelligence clearance, right? At CIA, everybody has an intelligence clearance. At NSA, most people have an intelligence clearance. There are security clearances for security, and then there's security clearances for intelligence, and then there's access clearances for special programs and for weapons and for nuclear materials and waste and for transportation of weapons and missiles and things like that. They're all different kinds of clearances for the different activities you'd be involved in. And for that, you definitely need the protective clearance along with some other clearances and training. That's why they send you to the farm, and then they send you to Washington to learn some. They send you overseas, and you might work out of an embassy and assist people who want to come to the United States and study. They like you to work in that kind of role because some of their smart people like to come to American universities and learn something. They respect our educational institutions: MIT, Harvard, Caltech, Berkeley, Stanford, Michigan, University of Texas. They know it's all good. College Station, Texas A&M. They love it, right? Some of the things I would tell you about the CIA in terms of the kind of person who's suitable, it's a person who doesn't give away a lot of information sometimes that is kind of hard to find. And what I'm saying is, if you've ever been the target of a law enforcement investigation, you understand what some of the training at CIA is like. They'll ask you questions, and they try to build a lexicon. And if you're a murder suspect or a rape suspect, they'll try to get you to confess without reading you your rights sometimes, right? And they'll have informants do the kind of work gathering information, and these informants will try to get a lexicon built so they understand what you're saying. And what is a lexicon? A lexicon is like a dictionary. So if you use slang and they don't know what a hoochie mama is or a trap is a crack house. So they'll ask you, what is a trap? And you'll say, oh, a trap is a crack house, white boy. What do? You smoke that stuff? I know a man. I know a dope man. And they say, what's a dope man? A dope man, a drug dealer. So you got to learn the lexicon. And even if they're not learning the lexicon for you specifically, they'll try to learn it for the community in general, like that town or that hood or across the country. And if you're going to be the target of an investigation, then make sure they do some confirmation kind of questions. It might not be related to your crime, but to identify some of your speech patterns, right? Well, when it comes to intelligence work, the spies do that to you a lot. And when you work overseas, you don't want to give away too much that would reveal who you work for, what your activities are, and objectives in terms of intelligence collections, right? You just want to stick to your cover. And part of that is resisting someone who's trying to build a lexicon that would infer or imply that you work for a foreign intelligence service. So just need to shed a little light on that, because some people would answer all those questions, and they're tricky, and they're real bright people that ask those questions. They're called counterintelligence specialists and detectives and state security and state police. And they want to get to the bottom of things sometimes, and your job is to either get out of the country or not answer any questions. And one of the questions that you can't answer sometimes is those questions about define this, tell me what this means. And they don't always ask in a police station with a blinding light in your face. Sometimes in a smoky bar or at a whorehouse or in a strip bar or whatever, an American restaurant, whatever it is, and sometimes you feel real comfortable, but the lights, camera, action is rolling there. And you need to know that that's how you can blow your cover. I'll tell you only one more quick thing, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I'm going to try to watch the news. The thing that that a lot of people get confused by is, how do you get paid at CIA? And I guarantee you, especially if you're overseas or in Washington, you may not get a check that says CIA officer on it. Here's your monthly stipend. You may get a lump sum of cash. You may be given bitcoins these days, probably. Some people, when they retire, they may get a military retirement. Most of them had a prior military background, and they would reinstate them at that rank or a little bit higher based on their experience as a CIA officer. So somebody who was a sergeant in the Green Berets, maybe a captain or a lieutenant colonel in the CIA, and they send them back as a lieutenant colonel and retire them. That happens sometimes, depending on how many years in the military, how many years at CIA, and what kind of what you ask for is important. How you want to be paid, how much you want to bury the story, and the more you're willing to bury, the more recognition they don't want to give you. But in some respects, internally at CIA, there is a lot of respect for people who don't want to buy T-shirts, they don't want to buy CIA watches and rings, and they just want to kind of disappear and not write books about the CIA. Some write books, but they're just not about the CIA. They write fantasy books about Star Wars or something. They could be a Hollywood writer. There's a lot of things people do. Some become professors, and sometimes the CIA just hands you a little cash. You run into somebody who buys you a steak dinner. I had a guy buy me steak dinners for like 6 months, offered me as much beer as I wanted. I didn't drink too much. I have one drink a week, like a shot of vodka, or I didn't usually do shots, but usually it was a screwdriver, just some orange juice and vodka. I drink that once a week and had a steak with him every week. And I used to, he used to bring me food and stuff, and there was always somebody that was helping me make life cheaper. But then there was a payment too, and it's not always a payment from the Department of Defense or the intelligence community. It goes into a CIA credit union because I chose to use that, and they authorized me to. But it can be just, cash payments or a treasury check from another government agency. So it could be like early Social Security, disability Social Security, a VA disability. It could be some type of military retirement. There are a lot of options. And there are also people who will promise you the world. And they'll tell you that if you get a job, we'll augment your pay. So instead of $120, you get $150 or $180 or something like that. And we'll make sure, even if you're a little short on qualifications, you could get the job you need to make the money you deserve to compensate you for your past contributions. Because some people at CIA have to live a humble lifestyle, right? Those are the knocks. People who do 5, 10, 15, 20 years undercover, not out of an embassy, but living in real humble environments, ghettos. And when you live in a ghetto, whether it's stateside or overseas, you can have access to a lot of great information and intelligence, but they're not going to let you drive around in your Lexus and cash $100,000 checks every day, right? You're not going to look at your bank statement every day either. And when you do get paid, it might not come from CIA. They can transfer the money to a company that does work with them, and that company can pay you for a job you do there. You might be sitting around doing nothing. I've heard of people that water the grass at universities and make $150,000 a year because they used to work at the CIA or something. And the university is like, well, I don't know, he's doing his job. And there's other people who say, well, no, he's not disabled, but we have to send him that check. And yeah, they transfer the money from the funds that are in a retirement fund for you or in a back pay fund. That's why if you're at CIA and you're receiving payments and the government shut down, it's because the funds have already been allocated for those payments. It's back pay that's already been allocated. It's not pay that's being drawn from the general fund for this year's budget. It's something that they stashed away for you that comes in a check no matter what the government does, unless we have something real catastrophic.